A new drug on the scene in the Twin Cities is making some pretty big promises.
And it's also setting off some alarm bells with doctors and has been linked to 2 suicides in other states. Tom Lydon of the Fox 9 Investigators is here with more on this for us. And Tom, you have some product I see.
do. And I actually like to keep up on the latest drug trends, as you know, but I was surprised. I'd never heard of this stuff before and didn't know it came in all these powders and mixes and teas. It's all part of the craze over Kratom, or Kratom as some people call it. Technically, it's not a drug at all. It's considered a nutritional or dietary supplement. But the experts say this stuff is far, far from harmless.
You don't have to lurk around a gritty street corner anymore to find the latest high.
This one has a lot more in it.
Just walk into your local head shop.
Put it in a drink. It doesn't taste very good or mix in very well.
That nutrition store down the street, or that little place that smells of incense and sells candles and herbal remedies.
Do you make Kratom?
There you will find a product, an herb called Kratom. Sold as a nutritional supplement, it comes in a liquid, powder, and pill form. It is perfectly legal and completely unregulated.
And the effects are how strong are given?
I have no, depends on each body, reacts different on each body.
When the Fox 9 investigators went undercover and asked salespeople how much to take, what it feels like, whether there were any risks, it was like translating code.
Yeah.
It's a natural herbal supplement, and that's all we tell people. We don't tell them what it does. We tell them they do their own research.
Is there something that's better than the others?
Well, it would be illegal for me to answer the question because I'd be prescribing without a license. I could talk about the magical properties all day.
I have been taking it for about 4 years for pain and for motivation.
If you want to know about Kratom's so-called magical properties,
it's surprisingly strong for something that's legal and safe.
There's no shortage of testimonials on the internet.
It can help with pain, anxiety, depression. It can help you recover faster from workouts.
There's even slick infomercials marketing Kratom for everything from pain relief to premature ejaculation.
You feel good. It was like a weight's lifted off of my shoulder. I call it the warm blanket effect.
And perhaps most controversial and dangerous of all, some who recommend Kratom as a way to get off heroin and pain medication.
I don't feel it's exactly changing one addiction to the other. I think that you're giving yourself a break.
So what is Kratom? It's a tropical tree in the coffee family found in Southeast Asia. And while it is a stimulant, its chemistry is also more complicated. Its active ingredient hits the brain's opioid receptor, in a way similar to morphine, but its effects far, far less dramatic.
People are going to hear opioids and think, wow, this is heavy stuff. Is it?
Well, I would say with herbal products, people need to be aware that they can have just as strong effects as prescription medications. Kratom can be addictive, just like Vicodin or oxycodone can.
It can be addictive.
It can be addictive.
At HCMC's Poison Control Center, they've had 20 calls this year about Kratom, twice as many as usual, some with symptoms of withdrawals and addiction. Dr. JoAn Laes, a medical toxicologist, says that's telling.
At the Poison Center, we get severe calls. We get the really concerned people, so we don't have an entire picture of the use in the Twin Cities for Kratom. And the fact that the calls have increased to us makes me concerned that this product has been growing in popularity here.
It's a bad drug. I can't even explain to you how bad it is.
But what all those testimonials and infomercials on the internet don't tell you are about the cases like John Adele, a 22-year-old student at the University of Georgia who committed suicide last month after telling his parents he was addicted to Kratom.
He was going through withdrawals. He couldn't take enough Kratom to stop the withdrawals because his tolerance was so high.
He and I were real close. He was like my buddy.
A similar story for Linda Mautner, whose son Ian tried to kick Kratom for 2 years. The 20-year-old South Florida man spending $60 a day on the habit.
He'd spend hours in the bathroom picking his face, and his eyes would roll back in his head. He wasn't eating anymore.
Until he took his life last July, jumping off a freeway overpass.
It was absolutely a nightmare watching my son and what this did to him.
The owner of the Hideaway Stores wouldn't do an on-camera interview, but he tells me he gets his product from a legitimate and safe distributor. He believes the problems with Kratom and the mixed reactions is because people aren't getting the pure plant, that it's been adulterated or mixed with synthetic drugs. But that's the problem. How do you know? Because Kratom is considered natural, it isn't regulated by the Food and Drug Administration.
There is very little solid research on kratom and how we metabolize it, even less on how kratom may interact with medications or street drugs. And some of the kratom we bought had no information label, nothing about ingredients or how much to take. If there is a warning, it's usually in microscopic print, like on this label. There is inadequate information to provide reasonable assurance that it does not present a significant or unreasonable risk of illness or injury. And if you're looking for advice from the people you're buying kratom from, think again. Apparently, for legal reasons, the salespeople stick to the script.
Come and buy this so they know what they're getting.
So people do know what they're getting here?
Yeah.
How would they know what they're getting? There's no label on here.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Does it concern you that we have capsules here, powder here, liquids here? Does that concern you?
As a medical toxicologist in the Poison Center, it's concerning that there's so many different forms and the amount is not really clearly labeled on these packages.
But we kept thinking about the one clerk who suggested all those doctors may have a secret agenda.
We are run by a prescription government. They prescribe you for anything and everything. People are looking for natural ways to fix their problems rather than, I mean, it's out there. There's a prescription addiction out there, more so than there is anything else in this country.
It's an echo of the argument you hear from medical marijuana as well, a natural alternative in a world of prescription meds. The question is whether it's a false choice between science and anecdote, between the doctors and the grieving mothers, and the clerk at your local head shop, or some dude on YouTube.
The FDA and DEA have now identified kratom as a substance of concern, and they're monitoring cases around the country. It's already illegal in 4 states, Wisconsin, Indiana, Tennessee, and Vermont. In Thailand, where kratom is widely used, it's considered a controlled substance. If you're taking kratom and have concerns or an adverse reaction, and we can't emphasize this enough, call the HCMC Poison Control Center at this number you see right here, 1-800-222-1222. We have that number and additional information from the DEA at fox9.com. Guys, the doctors really believe this is just starting to hit right now, that it's gaining popularity. It's been more popular traditionally on the East Coast, but it seems like it's getting traction here.
Tom, you started to touch on this in the story, but we're curious, are people using the kratom just straight, or are they mixing it with other substances?
A lot of times they're mixing it, especially they're mixing it also with opioid use. I mean, people out there really believe, and there's no research to back this up whatsoever, and it looks like this could be addictive as well, but they believe this may be a way to wean them off some of these hardcore opioid drugs that we've been hearing so much about.
A couple thoughts come to mind. I'm going to let the viewers know that Tom and I talked about this during the package, and I asked him if he'd tried it.
Everyone's asking me that.
Tell me what you said.
Well, once upon a time in my younger years, I might have, but I'm going to make it to 50, and my brain chemistry is just right now, and I'm not going to screw that up with something that I don't know what's in it. I mean, this could be adulterated, all sorts of these synthetic designer drugs. I mean, who's going to experiment with that? I mean, I have this feeling that we have a whole generation of kids with all these designer stuff, and they're one large pool of experiments that's going on, and we don't know what the results are.
That's the scary part.
That is.
All right, thanks, Tom.